Hello everyone, I am that 3D guy, and before starting this video I'd request you to please subscribe to this channel. It encourages me to create these kind of content, and I would also request you to press the bell notification icon so that you do not miss any updates. And one more thing I would request you to check out is the previous two videos which I had created on this topic. So this is a part series, and the first two parts were about the first part was about the canvas, laying of the canvas for making the iPhone, how we set up the canvas and how we set up the whole like the whole canvases, right? Like the side view, top view, front view of the canvases. And the next part was about creating the base surface. So the base body could be visible when we built it. We started building the base body of the iPhone, right? Today we'll be working on the back part of it. We'll be working on the camera module of it. So hopefully it turns out well, and I'm excited to do this video. So let's begin. So as you can see in this, it's clearly visible that the surfaces were looking pretty good as we discussed in the previous lesson. So the next thing which I'm going to do is make something which is just offsetting this, right? Which is just offsetting this. So we have to build something which just offsets this path to make a camera module inside, right? That's our aim for today. So we can take this curve and take the blueprint, right? We can just go into the blueprints panel and we can control C, and we can go into the back blueprint part and paste it inside, assign it over here. So we have something over here. If we pick objects here, we have something like this. So this is the main part which we have right now. We have removed everything out of focus, so it's easier for us to work on. Now what we need to do is we need to make an offset of this. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to make an offset of this. So there's an offset tool over here. It's there in object edit and offset. So you can offset curves, you can offset surfaces. So what is offsetting? It is like this. It tries to keep the same form factor, right? And shrinks the curve so that the form factor remains the same. So we'll do that. We'll press the offset. Here you can see all the linear, circular, or active view, geometry, average. We keep it in active view, or depending on whichever suits you the best. So we'll select this curve, we'll press offset. I think it has been offsetted over here. Oh, okay. So we go into the offset and we go into the, okay. So you see how the whole distance was. It was pretty big, so we just need to drag it a bit down, and you see that the form factor isn't matching as well. So we'll have to play a bit with the curve as well. We'll have to play a bit with the curve because it won't be as simple to manipulate this as we would have expected. So we can just make it a 3-degree curve instead and start playing with it. We can keep the curvature comb on as well for this. Reduce the curvature comb, scale to something like this. Yeah. So for now it looks pretty okay. The curvature comb looks pretty okay, but we are going to change its shape a little bit. We are also going to use the XFRMCV, which is like the transform move CV curve. So we can just use this, hold spacebar. Here are all the tool options, how we want to move the CVs, right? How we want to move the CVs. So you can move it on its axis, you can project it, you can make it parallel to some other CVs. I mostly use this one, which is sliding, and this one, which is like the normal of the CV, right? So what is normal? Normal is the direction which is directly perpendicular to the CV, right? So it's either normal or this one, and then this is the single CV or the whole hull. Hull is like the, if you want to select the whole CVs in the U direction or the V direction, so you can do all that as well. So I'll do the slide one. I'll slide it across and I'll change the mouse sensitivity as well. You can change the mouse sensitivity however you want to. You see how it's flowing down? We need to get it as close as possible. We also need to keep this in mind that these two arrows, like this and this one, they have a different purpose of, it's just how they function, right? If I move it across this, then it's going to move across this axis. If I'm going to move across this, then it's going to move across this axis. So you need to keep that in mind as well, that these two arrows have their own functions as well. So we'll try to adjust them as much as possible. We can even move them just so that it matches the form factor. Yeah, we can do something like this. This looks pretty reasonable. Yeah, something like this. So the main reason why I'm showing you this and the videos become so long is because there's only one thing. Like if I'm not showing it to you, if I'm fast forwarding some of the parts, then it becomes difficult for you to go through the whole process, right? So that's the main reason which I try to focus on, is to keep everything as transparent as possible so that you can clearly check what I'm doing, right? So I'm just making a straight line over here. I'm snapping the points and moving the parts over here. Now we'll keep this in G2. So I'll have to keep it in 5 degree as explained in the curve alignment video. I'll go into the align tab. I'll edge align. I'll G2 over here. And we have something like this. Again, we need to move it across. We need to match what works best. We can even play with this, take it a bit back so that we have a good curve, right? So you see how I'm trying to get it correct. So in Alias, even after a lot of time, after a lot of years also, people find these things quite maybe they have an intuition of what point to move and what works best. So it depends how you're gonna like understand and how well you're gonna understand this software. Also, you can clearly see that I'm trying to work well with the history, right? The more you try to work with the history, the better your the software is going to be your friend, right? So if you try to use the history as much as possible, it's going to be your friend. But if you mess the history up, you're gonna have a bad time as well. So I think I'm happy with something like this. It looks okay. There could have been a bit of offsetting over here. Maybe that's also a problem why these kind of blueprints don't work best. And we need to rely on our instinct sometimes just to keep something in the between, right? So this is also one thing which you need to keep in mind, that always have your own instincts, right? Like what works best and what doesn't work that well. So you need to keep those things in mind as well. So I think I'm happy with something like this. Now what I have to do, I have this part ready and I know that this part is symmetrical again, right? This part is symmetrical again. So I'm just trying to duplicate all these things so that it matches across all the 4 borders, right? That's what I'm going to do. So I'll take this point, I'll take this curve, I'll move the pivot over here, and I'll edit, duplicate, mirror, and okay. Oh yeah, I think this works for now. Maybe I can just delete this and move the pivot here again, snap it over here. I can even pick these series, move it on over here, and I think it matches pretty okay on this side. So there's obviously some issues with the blueprints as well. That is why always I think you should rely on your instincts, right? Then we pick these curves and delete this. Now there's one more thing. Why does it seem so easy while doing an iPhone is because it's symmetrical, it's completely straight. When you start working with a bit more complicated objects, like maybe an automotive object, right? Or maybe a camera which has a weird shape and all, it doesn't have a specified axis. It becomes very difficult to know, okay, on which axis does the G2 curvature, G2 CV lie, right? That's one of the most trickiest part in aliases. It's as simple as it sounds when you are starting out something, but as soon as you start attempting those things, it becomes difficult. That means it's easier in theory, but difficult when you do it practically. So we need to keep all those things in mind as well. So we move the pivot over here, we edit, duplicate, mirror, and I think on this time we need to do it on the XY axis. Hopefully it works. Yeah, it works. So we'll just take it a bit up, and you see, while mirroring, I need to keep a thing in mind that I need to select all the curves. I need to set a pivot point for it, right? I have to set up a single pivot point for all three curves which I have selected. So that's the main thing. That's the main thing you need to keep in mind. Okay, how am I going to approach this, right? That's the main thing that's going to be your major concern. So I'm going to just snap these curves. Maybe I'll try to realign it again, maybe, just to see if everything is in shape. Yeah, this works. It looks pretty okay. So we have something like this, right? We have something like this. Now what we're gonna do is we are going into the side view. Now we'll just move these curves over here. Control X to cut. We'll go into the default layer. Control V. And maybe it hasn't been pasted in the default layer, so we'll just assign it in the default layer, yeah. And maybe we'll hide these blueprints and maybe switch on this side view blueprint, which is I think, okay, it's there in the side view. So we have something like this, right? We have built a curve around, so we know, okay, this is where the whole point is going to be. Now there's one more interesting thing which we need to check, right? We have this curve. Now we need to offset this again. We need to offset this again. So what we can do is we have two options. Depending on the design also, we need to check if the two options work. I'm just going to set it a bit so that it doesn't look weird in any way. Yeah, this looks okay. Okay. So with this, what we are going to do is, we are also going to check how we are going to shrink it more, right? How we are going to shrink it more. So there's one thing, you need to create dummy curves and dummy surfaces as well. So what does dummy surfaces and dummy curves mean? So they're nothing but they are there only for the assistance, right? They only assist you in making, okay, which point is where. So here I'll make two dummy curves so that I can find out the center for all these objects, all these curves, right? I'll find the center for all these selected curves just by using a dummy curve. So what I'll do is, I'll go over here. Now you see it snaps directly in the center of the curve. Now I can select the snap division through here. There's an option over here. There's a small dialog box which opens when you click over here, and you can switch the snap division. So if I keep it on 1 and I try to move it around, you see the second snap division has like disappeared. So if I go again over here, if I make it to 2, now it's gonna reappear again. So we have something like this, right? I'll just switch it off. I'll come down again. So I'll make another one over here. I'll snap it down over here. Now we need to find an intersection for this. So this is over here, over here. You have something like this. And we have a pivot point over here. So what it does is, it helps us to make a pivot point like this. If I select all these points over here, and this, we can just move their pivot and snap it in the center, right? So if we Control C, Control V, that is copy and paste this and shrink it, you see how proportionally it is moving down. It's shortening in a proportionate way, right? That's the best thing about Alias, is that you can set the pivot for whichever point you want. So that's the best thing about it. So we'll see where our shorter edge is, right? Our shorter edge is somewhere over here, which is again quite blurry. I don't know if you can see, but it's quite blurry and it's somewhere over here. So our short edge is somewhere over here. We'll place it over here. Maybe we'll have to even disable. Okay, it's okay. We do not need to disable anything. Maybe we need to make it a bit more short, somewhat like this. Yeah, I think this works. We'll also need the back part, I guess. From blueprints, I think we need to have a back part as well to see if it's aligning properly, right? So I think this needs to be a bit bigger, somewhere over here. Yeah, somewhere over here. Cool. So I think something like this might work. Now there are two options to approach this. So there's either you can draft it in a particular direction, or either you can skin it. I prefer skin because I have a complete control over where my end surface is going to be as well. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take all these curves and I'm going to hide it, right? So I'll take all these curves and I'll move them inside a bit. I'll move them inside on the other side over here. I'll also select over here, Control J, again I see, and if you can see, I can just relate, okay, where my path is going to be. So it's going to be somewhere over here. Yeah. So if you see, the farther I'll take the path, so the farther I'll take the path, the shorter, or maybe the less, or maybe it will be less slant, right? The surface which we are going to connect is going to be less slant. I'll just show it to you once. Maybe I'll show it to you by scanning these two surfaces. Okay. So we have something like this. Now if I have something which is like this, right? I have something like this and I move it here. You see how the whole thing has been like flattened a bit more. So we don't want that. The more closer we are, the higher it goes, right? Obviously. So the point goes very short over here and it goes very high over here. So that's the best thing. We need to keep these things in mind, and it can help us to, like, that is the reason I like to use skin as well. Without changing the degree a lot, I can just manipulate all these things and maybe trim it and cut it out and stuff like that. So it's pretty good. I'll just skin all these things as well. I won't chain select. I'll just keep skinning it. Maybe I'll keep it 5:3. I'll keep skinning it. And they might not be in a curvature with each other. I'm not sure about that, if it's gonna work, but they are, okay. It's a good thing. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it's quite frustrating, sometimes it works. So it's always that if, right? That if it's gonna work or not. So we have this surface built, but we still don't have something which defines the edge, right? So we are just gonna make a plane maybe you can just make a plane, or you can use a plane, or you can use a curve, draft it. So as I said, there are hundreds of ways to approach one single solution. So I'll just make a curve over here so that at least I get it on one axis. I'm going to make over here. I'm just going to remove the span which I created accidentally, and then I'm just going to draft it in this direction, right? I'm just going to keep it as simple as I can from here. I don't need such a big surface. Also keep in mind not to use very big surfaces where you don't need them. Big surfaces are good, but where you don't need them, it becomes quite unnecessary. And anyways, the surface is very flat, so we are just going to use one single curve over here. One single surface which is very small. It's okay. Maybe we can just extend it a bit so we do not have any loopholes, right? Just for the surface is not intersecting or projecting. So I have this surface. I'm pretty happy with it. I'll just project these lines, because the thing is, again, now we need to keep these things in mind. Sometimes intersect works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe because of the tolerances, right? Sometimes if there's a surface which is hitting directly like this with another surface, it doesn't know if it's going to intersect or not, right? If the edge is somewhere over here, it's not going to know, the other surface is not going to know if it's going to intersect or not. So intersection mostly works only if it's very perpendicular, or if it's at an angle at 45 degrees. But if it's at an angle which is more than 45 degrees, or maybe it is coming directly tangentially to the other surface, it becomes very difficult for the other surface to understand if it's okay, if it's tangent or not. So we need to keep that thing in mind as well. So what we'll do is we'll project, we'll select all these, we'll select all these and we'll project it in the view, right? We projected it in the view, trimmed it out, and I think it's still going to be G0 no matter if we project it or intersect it. Obviously we know that the plane which we created was exactly intersecting the path, right, of the main fillets and the main path, right? So that is why we knew it's going to be G0 anyways. But sometimes if it's tangent and if you try to intersect it, it's going to create a lot of problems, right? The curve on surface might not be straight. It might be very difficult for the software to understand, okay, if it's actually intersecting or if it's only at tangency. So that's one thing which you're gonna keep in mind while surfacing. So we have the edge part over here ready. Now one more thing what we need to do is, if you might have seen in the reference, we have kind of this part ready. It looks a bit big as well. I think it needs to be shortened a bit, maybe because this part is coming out as well. So it's just half of it, I guess. So we'll take a look at that as well now. Maybe one more thing what we can do is, that's the best part about history, is that you can just take all these things behind, right? You can just take all these things behind. So maybe if I just pick these objects, I need to pick this object, okay. I'll pick this object. Yeah. So I just need to take them a bit behind, right? And maybe scale them a little bit up and move them a bit behind as well. Yeah. So I think something like this might work. And again, I think we need to work on this as well. Maybe we'll just untrim this again. Untrim this again. Maybe take the CV over here, move it a bit up, right? And I think the history issue was being shown because of this only. Maybe because of the draft, it wasn't ready to accept. So we'll take this over here. We'll just snap it over here. And then again repeat the same process, right? Project. Now these are the things that are trial and error, right? The moment you lose like that feeling of making errors and maybe rebuilding something, you're gonna lose interest in Alias. So the main thing which keeps us interesting is, like, you keep doing no matter what. You might not be able to reach it in one go, but yeah, that's what Alias is all about. So there's a small fillet over here, so we can even select all these surfaces if they are tangential, or the surface detects, okay, this is how the whole surface is, right? So it just detects if it's in tangency, and you can just select all these surfaces together. It's going to take some time maybe, and then it's going to launch. Okay, I think it's been selected. Okay, it's showing me purple. Yeah, so it's purple. Here it's yellow, and we need to set it up. Maybe we can keep it to 0.25 for now. Let's see. Okay, that works. 0.25 works. Fuck. Yeah, so 0.25 works. Maybe a bit more could work as well. I'm just hoping for a bit bigger bulge, right? 0.5. Yeah, this works. So we have something like this. This looks pretty good. Now we need to keep those surfaces at least amount of surface we need to use, right? So the bigger the surfaces, the better the quality. So these things we need to keep in mind. This surface wasn't very difficult to replicate, obviously. These are just the beginning stages of Alias, so it's not very difficult to understand all these things. So we have something like this. Maybe we can just see. Okay, I think it's a bit straight, right? It's a bit straight. It's not that slanted. What I can see from the reference is okay. So what we can do is we can again select all these curves. Maybe we can select all these curves over here. Maybe Control H. Yeah. So pick all these curves over here. We have the center for this. Control J. And move it a bit far, right? Now if you see, like the whole thing is changing, right? The whole thing is changing. Even the fillets are changing accordingly. So that's the best thing about Alias is the history. You can play as much as you want, as long as you have the intent and everything right. It's perfect. There won't be a lot of issues. I also think that maybe we need to make another layer, right? We need to make another layer for these because it's getting quite problematic for us to select all these. But this looks pretty good. One more thing we'll have to keep in mind is that there's going to be a very small fillet over here as well, right? There's going to be a very small fillet over here as well. So I was just thinking maybe we could extract this out a bit more, right? We could extract that a bit more. So we'll see how it goes. We'll select all these curves. Maybe not this one, but everything apart from that, I think it's gonna work, right? Let's hope it works, because you never know how Alias is gonna react. It's one of those softwares which is like does what it wants to, but here it worked fine. So I'm pretty happy about the result. And then we can intersect over here. Now we know, okay, it's going in 100%, so we can intersect inside, right? So let's see if it's gonna intersect. So intersect command is nothing but it just creates curves on surfaces on both the surface on the points where it is intersecting, right? So that's what it does. So we're just gonna select the surfaces over here, these surfaces and this surface. We'll just Control H for hide and intersect. So what we can do is we can just select these set of surfaces over here hold intersect. I think I'll show it to you for you over here. It's there in, if you hold project, it's there in intersect, right? So it's there in surface edit. If you hold project, it's going to be in intersect, right? So you select all these surfaces first, pick surfaces, then you can go into intersect, and you see how it turned purple or pink. You can just select the other set of surface and it creates the whole curve on surface around it. So that's how it works, right? Then we are just gonna trim it out over here. And you might have noticed that, okay, maybe we this part also got removed. This is because of the layer symmetry which we had done, right? You remember we had done the layer symmetry in the previous lesson. It was because of this that we are experiencing this hole over here as well. So we'll also trim inside the inside part. Now we are just gonna select all these parts. We are gonna select all these parts again and just discard. Hopefully it should go. Yeah. So you see there's a bulge over here inside. For the final part, we'll also try to create a fillet. Let's see if the fillet works. I think it should, because the more you use Alias, the more you are going to understand how it functions. So we'll keep it to 0.24 for now. One more thing is, don't directly jump into very big fillets. Take it small, or you'll come to know, okay, from which point Alias isn't detecting anything. Because if I take it to maybe 0.75 straight away, I don't think it's gonna work. Okay, it worked, but maybe a bit more than that, maybe 1 might not work, because it won't know where to stop. You see, there are these dotted lines because there's this surface also which has a fillet and that has not been selected before. So we need to keep all those things in mind. So start with something very low. I don't think we need something very big right now, so it's okay. We'll just highlight it again, and yeah, we have something like this, which looks quite similar, right? Which looks quite similar. If I just rotate it over here, it looks quite similar. The bulge and everything looks quite similar. The only thing is, maybe what we could have done is, we need a cutout over here, a small cutout over here, right? That's the only thing we need. So in the next lesson, we'll discuss about that. We'll also make the hole for the cameras and everything. We'll also see how we can remove all these issues, right? We can remove all these issues. Maybe we can reduce the fillet a bit over here. That's what I think we can do. This video has been long as well, but it is quite necessary to focus on all these minute details before moving on to the bigger ones, so that it becomes very clear for you once you start attempting them on your own, right? Especially if you are a beginner, it becomes very tricky for you to even know which tool is where and what all these tools are, right? So all these things you need to keep in mind, that okay, there are like hundreds of tools and which tool to use, and all these things that need to be like known. Anything apart from 3D, if you have you want to maybe get your doubts cleared, and you can just mail me at that 3dguy23@gmail.com, or even post your doubts, or maybe post your doubts in the comment section, so that I can look on them and maybe try to solve them if possible. So not only in Alias, because obviously I think I'm pretty okay with Alias, but any other software as well, if it's Blender, or if it's maybe any rendering software, or if it's Maya, you can just post it in the comments box below, and I'll be glad to take a look at it, because I think I can solve the doubts pretty good, because I have that nature of like experimenting with a lot of things and stuff like that. So obviously Alias is my forte, but I think I can handle almost a lot of things in a 3D software, right? So that's it for today. I hope you liked today's session, and we'll continue the session tomorrow. As I said, we need to finish this by the 31st, or yeah, by the 31st of Jan, the 31st of December, so that we have this iPhone ready by the next year. Thank you.